Wait, you want to get him custody? He's going to go to want another treat? Okay, we're gonna have a treat. He gets treats. So another episode of Reading with Radia. I didn't do so a few days ago, but we didn't really have time to do multiple books. So today I'm gonna do The Little House, and my doggy's here with me. Got a treat right there, so he's gonna be with me the whole time this time. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Well, Boomy. No, or he's just gonna eat it right now. You know, either one. Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house. She was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see our great-grandchildren living in her." Oh, he's coming back. He got quick. The little house was very happy. As she sat on the hill, she watched the countryside around her. She watched the sun rise in the morning, and she watched the sun set in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before. The little house stayed just the same. Come on, Boomy, you can come up. Come on, Boomy. Come on, you can't just stand there. All right, he's just gonna stand there. In the night, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon, and back again to a thin old moon. There he goes. And then there was no moon. She watched the stars way off in the distance, and she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. I have a doggy again. Yes, doggy. He's going to get a treat. Time passed quickly for the little house as she watched the countryside slowly change with the seasons. In the spring, when the days grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green, she watched the buds on the trees swell, and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children play in the brook. Hi there, Boomy. You're cool. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves. And the white daisies cover the hill. She watched the gardens grow, and she watched the apples turn red and ripen. She watched the children swimming in the pool. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn the leaves so bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gather and the apples picked. She watched the children go back to school. In the winter, when the nights were long and days short, and the countryside covered with snow, she watched the children coasting and skating. Year followed year. The apple trees grew older, and new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city. And now at night, the lights of the city seemed brighter and closer. One day, the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon, there were more of them, and on the road and fewer carriages pulled by horses. Pretty soon along came some surveyors and surveyed a line in front of the little house. Pretty soon along came the steam shovel and dug a road through the hill covered with daisies. Then some trucks came and dumped big stones in the road, and some trucks came with little stones, and some trucks came with tar and sand, and finally a steamroller came and rolled it smooth, and the road was done. Now the little house watched the trucks and automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster now than before. More roads were made, and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses, apartment houses and tenement houses, schools, stores, and garages spread over the land, and crowded around the little house. No one wanted to live in her and take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver, so she just stayed there and watched. And now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the streetlights shone all night. This must be living in a city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the fields of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. Pretty soon there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house and went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Pretty soon there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed about the same. Pretty soon, there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house. She couldn't see it, but she could feel and hear it. And people were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried by without a glance. There's the little house. Pretty soon they tore down the apartment buildings and tenement houses around the little house and started digging big cellars, one on each side. The steam shovels dug down 3 stories on one side and 4 stories on the other. Pretty soon they started building up. They built about 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. Now the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all, because the lights of the city were too bright. She didn't like living in the city. At night she used to dream of the country and the fields of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty, her windows were broken, and her shutters hung crookedly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good as a house as ever, underneath. Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but didn't hurry by. There was something about the little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "That little house was just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was out way in the country with a hill covered with daisies and apple trees growing around." They found out it was the very same house, so I went to the movers to see if the little house would be moved. The movers looked all around the little house and said, "Sure, this house is good as ever. She's built up so well we can move her anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and put her on wheels. Traffic was held up for hours as they slowly moved her out of the city. At first the little house was frightened, but after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road, they rolled along the little roads until they were way out of the country, way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard all the birds singing, she did not feel sad anymore. They went along and along, but she couldn't seem to find the right place. They tried the little house here, they tried her there. Finally they saw a little hill in the middle of a field, with apple trees growing around. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter. "That's just the place." "Yes, it is," said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on the top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again she could watch the sun and moon and stars. Once again she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again she was lived in and taken care of. Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. The new moon was coming. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. And that's it. There's that. Yeah, and if you have any book recommendations or that you want me to read, send it to eric@theekholms.com. And yeah, books are amazing, and so are you.